Hello everyone, and this is a continuation of the staircase lesson that we had started in the previous video. So what I want to do with this video is I want to add more details to this staircase. Okay, so primarily what I want to do is I want to add like some pillars on the side and a railing. So just to have like the staircase covered from the side so you don't sort of fall off the staircase. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to cover two primary topics. Okay, the first one being groups and the second one being add. And then we can do a few additional things like we can take a look at the skin node and the carve. And also we are going to take a look at the blast node, okay, which is technically delete. Okay, so a blast is technically delete. Okay, so first we'll just take a look at those nodes like individually and then we'll see how to use them. So what is groups? Okay, so groups is essentially selections. Okay, so from from a Max standpoint or anything, in Max you could do something called selection sets. So group is essentially selection sets. And the interesting thing about groups is that they can be made manually or they can be made procedurally or mathematically. And there are also certain like modeling operations that will generate groups for you automatically. So there are a ton of ways in which you can do groups. Our current usage of groups is going to be very simple. It will get complicated as we sort of move along with our lessons. But currently I don't want to make it like too complicated. Okay, so let me just show you what we can do with groups. So let's say if I take a sphere and the default sphere that you get is a primitive. This is not polygon based. Like if I click here and I look at the info, then there is only like one vertex and one primitive. This is technically a procedural sphere which will always be smooth, but then it doesn't have polygons, so you can't like distort it or deform it or anything like that. You can just, like all you can do is just turn it into like an ellipse or something, but you can't deform it. This is good if you just want to scatter a lot of spheres on a surface or whatever. This is great because it takes very little it doesn't really have geometry and it's very fast to render as compared to having polygons. Okay, so I'm just going to change this to polygon for now, and just to show you what we can do. So if you type group, now you get a whole bunch of them. Okay, now in Houdini 15 there used to be just one primary group node, which has now been broken up into about 4 or 5 different nodes. Okay, I think it's again for like memory conservation. I do have a free video on my Vimeo page called Groups in Houdini 16. Once we finish this lesson, if you want, you can take a look at that particular video. It's a little more advanced because it goes a little more into vex and stuff. But if you just want a general idea of what you can do with groups or how they function, you can take a look at that. So if you just want to like have a jump start on things. Okay, so I'm just going to take a look at the basic group node. Okay, so I'm going to take a group node, and when you connect it, so by default, it selects all the polygons. Okay, and that is the name of the group. Okay, so let's just call it S. Okay, for now. So you can see like it also shows you like this is group 1 and it's called S. One node can only create, like one group. If you want to have multiple groups, you take more nodes. There are ways to create like more groups within this, but this particular node won't really do that. So you can select in multiple ways. You can select base group wherein you can type just a number of polygons that you want to select, stuff like that. You can select by bounding box, which is, I can just move this bounding box here, and then whatever is inside that bounding box gets selected. So what do you do? Like once you've selected this, what can you do with it? Okay, so what I can do is, let's say if I take a transform node, and you'll notice that the transform has this option called group. Okay, and right now when I'm moving, I can move the whole thing. But if I change this to group, then it's only going to move what's selected. Okay, and the interesting thing is because the selection here was bounding box based, if I move this out, see, you'll see like the movement changes. Okay, or based on how much it is selecting, it keeps adjusting. And also the group can be polygon based or point based. So we can select just a bunch of points, and the transform will also work on those points. Some nodes require polygonal selections or primitive selections, and some nodes specifically require a point selection. A node like transform can take both, so it's good. But like if you're doing like a poly extrude, then a poly extrude requires faces to be selected. And actually, it's not going to extrude points. So you have to sort of take care of that. Okay, so you can select points, you can select primitives, you can select edges, like whatever you want. Okay, you can also sort of like forget the rest. We'll come into it later. But let's say if I want to select a certain number of points. So I can also do stuff like if you click here, okay, this is called display point numbers. So you can see your point numbers. Let's say I want to select point number 30. Okay, not a slash, just 30. And if you move around, you'll see, there you go. I've selected point number 30. If I want to select from point number 10 to 30, then I can do 10 to 30. See, so now I'm selecting from point number 10 to 30. If I want to select like multiple points, I can say 10 and 30 and 45 and 60. See, so now I'm just selecting like those points. Okay, and then if I feed that into transform, see, you have, something along those lines. Okay. So yeah, so this is like a fairly rudimentary explanation of what groups is. The second node we're taking a look at is called the add node. Now the add node can generate geometry, and it can also modify existing geometry. So what you can do is, if you want, now the add node is actually can do a lot of stuff. We are only going to take a look at one basic usage of it. Just looking at it, you might not understand what this thing can do. Okay, now what you can basically do is it can generate some points. See, I've generated a point and I can place it somewhere, and then if I want, I can add more points. Okay, I can place that somewhere else, maybe here, and then I can take another one. Okay, and then this is kind of useless. You kind of go like, what do I do with this? You could probably do something with this. What you can also do is, if it has incoming geometry, then you have the option to delete polygons and keep geometry. Like if I click here, see, so now I have points left. And if you come into the polygon option, you have the option to connect all the points. Okay, so by default it connects based on point numbers. So like it's starting from 0 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's sort of connecting that way. If I change the sphere to like a polygon mesh, that will give you a better idea. See, now you can see how it's going. Okay, it's going like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and like all the way like that. So you can do stuff like that. Okay, and this is what we're going to use. So yeah, so this is basic of what you can do. The other nodes we'll cover, as we start the exercise. So this is a very rudimentary explanation of what these nodes can do. But again, as the exercise continues, as the lessons continue, you'll see more usages of it. This was just like a basic introduction. Okay, so coming back to the staircase. Now, what I want to do is, okay, before we continue, you can see like if you come to the merge, you can see like you have like this warning sign over here. What that usually means is Houdini has something called attributes, which we will take care of in the coming lessons. Actually, most probably the next lesson or maybe the one after that. But when it gives a warning like this, what that means is that one side has some attributes that the other side doesn't. Okay, like if I come in here and I press I, the only attribute I have is a point attribute called position. But if I come into the polywire and I press I, you'll notice that you have an additional attribute called vertex. It's called UV. Okay, and which is why it's causing a problem. Like if I click here, it will say a mismatch of attributes on inputs. Now, usually it's not a problem, but sometimes they can clash and it can cause an issue for rendering. So a good idea is to sort of check this stuff and probably turn things on or off. Like I can come to the polywire and it by default generates vertex texture. So I can turn that off and see now it's gone. So just to give you some info. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to generate some pillars on every step. And then, and once you've done that, then we're going to sort of generate a railing on it. So the idea is that we are going to take a line and place it here, or at the edge of my step. So we'll come to the step size. And we'll also take a line. Okay. So this is my line. And what I need to do is I need to place it at the edge, like at the absolute end of my step and on top of the step. So we're going to take a transform. And I'm going to come to step size, and this is the X axis. Okay, so I'm going to take the X scale, copy parameter, and come to the translate X for the line and paste relative reference. See, so it goes to the absolute edge, but we don't want it at the absolute edge. So maybe a little inside. So I'll do a minus 0.1. So it pushes it a little bit inside. And then we also want it on top of the step. So we'll come to the step size. We'll take the Y axis. I'll do copy parameter, come here and do it to the Y move and paste relative reference, and there you go. And then it's fairly simple. Then I can just, like, all of the merging, like this should merge before the transform. So I'm just going to take a merge here. Like just drop it on top, it will connect, and then plug this in. Now, if it's like, if you want it more like aligned, what you can do is select this, press Shift R. Like Shift R switches the inputs. And if we come to merge, and there you go. So the nice thing now is that if I come into the step size and I scale it out, sorry, wrong axis. Yeah, so if I scale it out, see the line always sort of stays at the edge over there. Now, what I need to do is, in order to generate the railing, I would like to isolate the top vertex. And then if I create a group of those top vertices, I can use an add node to connect all of them together. So what we'll do is, we are going to take, like, we'll come back to this line that we have. And I want to do two things. One is I want to be able to, like, after I merge all of it together, I want to be able to isolate the full line, later on, like after the copy. So first I'm going to create a group like here, and let's call this as line. And you don't need to change anything. By default, it selects the entire primitive. See, so it's the whole thing turns orange. And if you check here on the eye, it says one primitive group called line, and it has one primitive in it. And then I also want to create a point group for the topmost point. And we'll come in here and I'll call this top. And I'll change this to points. Now by default, it selects both the points. So if I press I, you'll see like it says one point group called top. It has 2 points in it. What we want is the top point. Now, in our case, this is like, it has just 2 points. Okay, so it's just 0 and 1. So we'll just type in 1. And that will select the top point. Now, if the question that you have in your head is, what if my line has a lot of points and I want to select the topmost point, that will require a little bit of coding. Okay, not like very complicated, but you'll need to know a little bit of Vex for that. And we will do that in like later sessions, not right now. I don't want to get too complicated, which is why I only kept 2 points here. If you do see if you do end up seeing the groups node, the groups in Houdini 16 video, that will show you the way to do it. But if you don't know Vex, it'll get confusing. So yeah, watch it. It's slightly higher end. Okay, so this is done. So what we have now is, if we take a look at this, we have one point group called top, which has 1 point in it, and one primitive group called line, which has 1 line in it. Now, where Houdini becomes really nice is that when this stuff is put through a copy, it will add all of the copies together. Okay, so if we come back to the copy here, nothing has really changed, but here's the fun bit. Like if I press I here, you'll see we have 73 steps. So automatically the top group now has 73 points, and the primitive has 73 lines. Okay, so that's kind of done. So what I want to do is I want to isolate the steps and the line. So we're going to take a blast node. A blast is a simple delete node, but it can delete based on groups. So I'm going to plug this in, and I want to delete the dash that you're seeing. The top are primitive groups and the bottom are point groups. So if you have like multiple of them, you'll see multiple of them. So we want to delete the line. So this only leaves the steps. Okay, and let's just call this as steps. and we'll do Control C, Control V. So the steps is fine. I don't want to do anything with the steps. Okay. This thing I'll say delete non-selected. So we're just left with the lines, and I'll call it lines. It feels like a little more work, but you'll understand why we're doing this. And then if I merge these together, we are back to where we started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press Y and remove, the copy from here, and we'll feed in this guy. Okay, so we're getting the same thing, but now we can do more stuff. So technically I want to work with the lines. The first thing I'll do is I'm going to take a poly wire, okay, and drop it in the middle. So this will give it some thickness. I can like lower that and give it some divisions. And so now we have this. Again, we're getting that warning because poly wire by default turns this on. So just turn off do vertex textures. So that's fine. Now comes the second bit, which is we want to isolate the top points and then connect them together. Okay, so we'll take the line, we'll come back to the line here, and I'm going to take a blast again, but we'll branch it out. Like this is fine. These are my pillars. Let's just call them, or let's call them stands, something. Okay. Okay, so we'll take the line in here, and what I want to do is I want to delete the top, okay, which will actually give me like the points at the base. So that's not what I want. We say delete non-selected, so that will give me the points on the top. So this is fine. This is the top. I also let's do Control C, Control V, and I also want to keep like the bottom points. So let's just call this, okay, bottom, and we'll turn this off. So we have the bottom points and the top points. Like we have both of them. Let's call these as top. Okay, so I'll show what I want to do with the bottom points, but first we'll deal with the top points. So what you want to do is fairly simple. Is just take an add node and come to polygons and just say by group. Done. Like you don't need to do anything else. And once we've done that, you can take a poly wire again, connect it, and turn off do vertex textures, give it more sides, and we'll plug it back into this merge. So there you go. See, you have a nice little staircase with railings. Okay. Now just to add like one final detail, let's say at the base of this, we probably want like a small sphere or something, just to have like a little bit of additional detail, which is why I have these bottom points. Okay. So I can take the bottom points here. I can take a sphere, and we want to copy these onto the bottom points. Now this is going to start looking a little more complicated, but just deal with it one piece at a time. Like don't look at the whole network, but just like deal with what you need to do at that point in time. Okay, so we're just going to take the bottom points, and instead of taking a copy, take something called copy to points, which from a Cinema 4D standpoint is your MoGraph cloner, but you're cloning to points or cloning to polygons, so that is what copy to points does. And the points come in on the right side, the sphere comes in on the left side. It will be too huge, so just reduce the size of it. So we'll lower the radius and lower the scale. Let's merge it back and see what we get. Yeah, there you go. See, so that's pretty fancy. Okay, like it's pretty straightforward what you want to do. The one interesting thing you can do within the add node, okay, which is kind of nice, is by default it will connect all the points, but you can also tell it to connect a group of points. So if I say group of n points, and now this is connecting every second point. So if you look at the merge now, see, you're getting something like this. So you want to do something more fancy, you can do that. Like I can say group every 4 points. See, so you're getting like something like that. So you want to do a little more, fancier stuff, you can do slightly more fancier stuff. But then you'll end up with like, one odd step getting left out. But that's okay, like that's what you can do with it. So yeah, so what was earlier a little simpler is now a little more complicated, but now you have a more detailed, and the nice part is everything is still being controlled by this one line. So if I come into this main line that we have and I reduce the height, see, your number of steps automatically start to adjust. You take the poly wire and you increase the radius, see, everything still gets pushed out. So it's still, fully procedural and live. Okay. one final thing, and this is just an addition, but we're going to cover, let's say if you want to do something fancy, like have like a glass thing in the middle. Okay, like a continuous glass piece that is sort of connected in the middle. You can do something like that. And the way we can do that is I can come to the lines that we have. And I just want to connect like a little bit in the middle. So this is where, this is completely optional. If you don't understand this, I'll explain it. But this is just to show you a couple more nodes. So we're going to use something called carve. A carve node allows you to cut lines. So I'm just going to take this line and drop it there. If it feels too long, keep Alt pressed and you can plug in like a point in the middle so that it sort of, you can stretch out the line. Let's take this to a side. Yeah, like here I can press an Alt and, just have them spread out. Okay, so if I come to the carve, you'll see that it's cutting it. So you can cut it from top and you can cut it from bottom. Okay, and we'll keep it to like 0.1 and 0.9. So it's the same line except that it is slightly smaller. And then I can just take a skin node. So a skin node will just connect the lines together. So if I just take a skin node, see, there you go. And if you want, you can give it some thickness. So we can take a poly extrude, which will give it some thickness. Poly extrude is a face extrude. Again, this is just me going through a few extra nodes. So you can do a little bit more modeling. You will get a handle down here if you want, or you can adjust the distance value. So we just want to give it a slight bit of thickness, and it does not generate a back face by default. Okay, like if you see, if I pull it out, see there's nothing on the back side. So what you need to do is you just need to come down and say output back. Of course, this is too thick, so we'll just, like lower it. And that's basically it. So if I just plug this in, you'll see, there you go. So you have like a nice little, cover in the middle if you want. And you can adjust the carve value to, adjust the height of this. So if you want it just in the middle or something like that, you can do something like that. But there you go. So a couple more additional things that you can do. And then if you look at the final merge, there you go. There's your final staircase. So yeah, so we ended up covering a few extra topics, but it gives you an idea of how you can sort of take something fairly basic and then expand it. And the nice thing about this one was we didn't have to do any kind of channel referencing. Like we just had to do like a basic channel reference in the beginning to place the line, like the transform stuff that we did here. But the rest of it is just, procedurally connecting and modifying nodes. So the group stuff and the add nodes and everything else, they don't require you to type any kind of code or whatever. It'll just happen automatically if you do it right. Okay, so that's basically it. So I will make this file available. I'll upload it on Dropbox and share it. So if you have any, if you get confused, you can study this file and you'll know what to do. Yeah, let me just sort of take this step size and probably lower it a bit. Yeah. So yeah, so if you want, you can convert this to a digital asset. Like that's completely up to you. Okay, so you know what parameters there are and what you want to expose, and then you can build a digital asset on it. Okay, so that's basically it. So what I'm going to do with the next lesson is I had asked people if they want to make a chair, and I did get an email from somebody. I don't remember your name. I'm sorry. I haven't seen the file as yet because I just got it last night. But yeah, I had a few questions about people asking me how to do the chair. So I am going to make the chair. So the next video, we'll take a look at how to make the chair, and that might probably help us cover like a few more topics. But the video after that, we're going to move into more interesting territories. So we're going to start looking at attributes. So attributes is very important in Houdini. So we'll take a look at that with the one after the chair video. Okay, so as usual, if you have any questions regarding this or anything else in general, you can write me an email, send me a message wherever, ask me on YouTube, because now I'm on YouTube as well. And yeah, if I can, I'll definitely help you out. So that's basically it.